the Greens have obviously been a big part of this campaign in the Inner West because of their support for local democracy. And we're very happy to have up next Kobi Shetty, who's not only an Inner West councillor, she's also the member for Balmain, and a very busy person, so thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks, Pip. Sorry, Brian. I too would like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting here today on the land of the Gadigal and Mongol people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I think it's particularly important at this time, post the pretty devastating results of the referendum, to take that time to acknowledge that we are still on stolen land and that there are a lot of Indigenous people in our community that are really hurting at the moment. So, yeah. I too want to acknowledge what John said before and just thank my fellow local councillors. John, obviously, Rochelle Porteous, who was on council for a very long time, Margarita de Cruz and Liz Atkins, who have been and continue to fight to de-amalgamate and have kept this front and centre throughout many, many years post the amalgamation, and fought very hard in the first case to try and stop it from going ahead. And I think what has been incredibly disappointing over the last, 8 years is to watch Labor not work hard enough to prevent the amalgamation in the first place, saying what I think they wanted us to hear by pretending that they were anti-amalgamation, but in fact not doing everything that they could do to prevent it from happening, not taking that legal action that we saw some other councils take that did prevent them from amalgamating, and then continuing to sort of tell us what they think we want to hear until they have an opportunity to do something about it, and then walking that back. Because I think we've had a really thorough explanation from Amanda about why the legislation is broken and what we need to do to fix it, from John about all of the things that we can see that haven't eventuated, that we were told were going to be the benefits of amalgamated councils, and from Brian about what's going wrong, I think, at the moment with Labor walking back their commitments. Now, in opposition, as Brian said, Labor did commit to allowing councils that wanted to de-amalgamate to in fact do it. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now that they have the opportunity to do it is we're seeing, rather than grabbing this chance and helping these councils de-amalgamate and get back to that really local democratic council that we all really appreciated before, is that they're signalling that they're going to actually shift that cost back onto the local community, which is deeply disappointing. And I think from the Inner West perspective, it's been very clear that Labor have not been interested in de-amalgamating this council. It's gone from not backing the vote that John was working on getting through, to then putting forward this terrible business case that is clearly not a business case to de-amalgamate, which is, I think, what they have a responsibility to put forward when 62.5% of our community has signalled very clearly that they want their local councils back. I think what's been deeply disturbing is to see the state government now walking back on that commitment too, and that's why it's so important that we move this legislation in New South Wales Parliament, and we make it very clear, all of these communities that care about this issue, that they need to step up and support our local communities doing what they want to. I just want to quickly talk about the impacts of amalgamated councils, and John touched on a lot of things that aren't good about amalgamated councils, and a lot of things that we kind of were concerned about happening should the councils be amalgamated, and we have this unwieldy behemoth that is now the Inner West Council. And I think there's two very clear examples to me, on top of what John talked about what's not working with this large council. One is our local democracy groups. Now, there used to be wonderful precinct committees that were very democratic. People could come and attend whenever they wanted to. They were very open. People could contribute. Those committees had the opportunity to bring things up to the council and the councillors to consider. And what we've got now in replacement is these local democracy groups that are in fact very difficult to get onto. They've got an expression of interest process. You need to be selected to participate in these committees, so they're already preventing democratic participation in a lot of these different groups. And then there's no ability for these local democracy groups to bring their ideas and their thoughts and their suggestions about how we can function better as a community and a council up to the council to actually do something about it. And when we were voting on re-establishing these committees a couple of years ago, I think 18 months ago, I tried to move an amendment that they could be open so that we didn't have to have people applying to contribute, and that they would have some sort of mechanism to be able to bring their ideas and suggestions forward to the council. And those were both voted down by the majority Labor Council, and unfortunately we've got this situation where they're called local democracy groups, but there's not much that's actually democratic about the work that they're doing, because they're not, they've been rendered sort of unable to really have participation in the decisions that council's making, and that's been really disappointing. And I think the other one I wanted to talk about, and nobody's going to be a stranger to this issue, is the recent rollout of the changes to the bins. So just to talk you through my last few weeks, I've been dealing with a wide range of political issues, ranging from bin collections to Palestine, and it's been a very challenging few weeks, I think, for us in council and in New South Wales Parliament. But I think the bins is a perfect example of why these huge councils don't work. We've got council that reaches all the way over to Tempe. Now, I don't know about any of you that may not live sort of around this way where I live, but I don't have a great idea about what's going on over in Tempe. I think it's pretty different to Birchgrove, it's pretty different to Leichhardt, it's pretty different to Petersham, and having this big unwieldy council makes it really hard to cater to the needs of the community. And so what we've seen earlier this year, in preparation for the collection of the food and organic waste, was changes to the recycling system that weren't consulted with the community. And people were given very, very big bins that don't necessarily fit in their homes. It was just a really difficult, stressful period for a lot of residents trying to adjust to these big, heavy bins that don't suit their homes. And that's a sort of decision that I think wouldn't have happened if we weren't trying to harmonise services across a council that tries to cater to too many different communities that may not necessarily look the same. And then we've seen it again in the rollout of the food and organics collection, which is a positive thing for the council to actually be collecting food and organics waste for processing. But the way that it has been rolled out has been hugely problematic, because it's trying to do too many things across a huge area. And I think we all know that it's still not going particularly well at this point. And if anyone has any trouble with your bins, please send me an email. I'm happy to help. So I think the only other thing I wanted to say is just thank you for your consistent commitment to trying to get this across the line. I think without so many of you being so passionate about getting our local councils back, we would not be here where we are today looking at putting legislation into New South Wales Parliament. So I just ask that you please continue that commitment, work with the Residents For Deamalgamation, work with Demerge New South Wales Alliance, work with us on the council and in state parliament who want to get this done, and do everything you can for this push so that we can finally get our local councils back.